again by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner, gets up center. Perry scores! Corey Perry!
Ilya able to shake away from Solani. It's given away to Solani. Around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal.
And the fans want one. Score! On the board! Paul Kariya!
Always waiting for the comeback kids of old. The Ducks let us down again tonight, Eddie. Welcome, everyone, to the Forever Mighty post-game show. It's not as bad as everyone has been making it out to be lately. I feel like the scores have been better, shots have been better. But the Ducks fall to the Avalanche, the mighty Nathan MacKinnon. Honestly, that guy took over the game here. 4-3 in overtime on the power play with 1.3 measly seconds left in the game. Eddie, this game, so far so good from the beginning. Hits the middle, Avs take over, and the Ducks just can't find the gas pedal again.
No, we expected this from this line, though, right? From McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog. Anybody who saw the Forever Mighty 3 stars today, that was our third question, was who will get more points, the Ducks first line or the Avs first line? Obviously, it was a bit of a loaded question because of how good the Avs first line has been, and they showed it in this game. They didn't really turn it on until the second period when everything started going their way, and once they started finding that space, McKinnon and Rantanen specifically took over this game. Landeskog, not saying he's a passenger on that line, but those two are just on a whole nother level.
I don't know where the hell this Rantanen kid came from. I mean, clearly he was showing that he's a really good player last year. And then McKinnon just took over this team once Duchesne was traded. Yeah. And now you're looking at Rantanen coming onto this lineup, and it's insane. It's so deadly. If they can get a couple of utility guys to play down throughout the lineup, guys who could chip in some goals here, this Avs team could be really dangerous.
Yeah, they're missing maybe one other defenseman to complement Tyson Barrie too, because Tyson Barrie's a very good defenseman, but other than that, they don't have a lot of pieces. Erik Johnson never panned out to what they expected. I think they even got him from St. Louis.
What about Ian Cole?
Well, I like Ian Cole, but again, still, he's not that extra piece. And then reliable goaltending is still an issue for them. Varlamov has been good, but he by no means is he an elite goalie. But they're just missing a couple pieces. But when you've got the superstars like McKinnon and Rantanen and Landeskog, that's really all the pieces you need to start building a contending team.
Yeah, it certainly looks to be the case for the Avs. You know, they have a decent goaltender now with Grubauer and net as well. So if they can start adding some pieces there, like you were saying, I guess the tide's turning for the Avalanche in a good way. Let's get started to some pregame notes. A few unexpected things, and I think you panicked people a little bit, including myself, with your post on Twitter today. With like the Ducks changing up their IR and who was listed on the roster. I mean, all of a sudden Lindholm goes to IR. You see Stockton and Mahura up on the lineup, and then you see Boyle getting called up from San Diego to come to the crease here in Anaheim. You're like, everyone's going, what the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? Turns out it's not as bad of news as we thought. Lindholm on the IR with a lower body injury, so he's going to miss, 3 games? Is that how that works?
Well, it depends on how long he's out. If he's on the IR, he can only come back in 3 games at minimum. Right. It depends on, we don't know how long he's hurt for, but at the very minimum, it's 3 games, yeah.
So you're looking to not see him here Wednesday, tonight, or on Friday against Edmonton. So there's a possibility he comes back after the Edmonton game next Friday after Thanksgiving. But Gibson, luckily, not injured, just has the flu. So that's good news for the Ducks. Ryan Miller's a very capable backup. Luke Schenn clears waivers. Not a surprise there. Goes to San Diego. Going into this game, I really liked the Ducks' chances, to be honest with you here. I know that this Avs team is really strong and potent, but I know the Ducks have been playing better hockey. They played pretty well against Toronto for the most part. It wasn't a complete collapse like I thought there could have been. But taking a look at the game tonight, I felt the Ducks would make more of their chances, and I like you said, I think after the second period they just never caught back up.
No, not really, and I kind of want to touch on that Gibson news today. It was the Ducks again. They love to create some havoc with the time in between that stuff goes up on their website before they announce it. But seeing Kevin Boyle's name there, and then we are seeing the star beside the name on the roster is meaning they're on the IR update throughout the day. So the star became beside Lindholm's name, and I was fully expecting to see that star just pop up beside John Gibson's name just because of the injury issues we've had all season. I was just like, it's gonna get there. It's gonna happen. Obviously, not a big deal. I would expect John Gibson to be back for the next game. I don't think he's going to be out that long with the flu.
I think so. Yeah, you would think it wouldn't be too bad.
Hopefully not. But yeah, we'll get into the game here. But I think it was a pretty good effort from them for the most part. I hate to say like a 40-minute effort, or they got to play full 60 minutes. I hate that phrase. But when you look at the way they played this game, they kind of broke down a bit after the midway point of the second period, or whether that's them breaking down or just the fact that that top line for the Avalanche took over. But you could really see the pace of play change.
For sure. Definitely, you stop seeing the clean and crisp passes out of the defensive zone and through the neutral zone on the fly. The Avs did a real good job of snuffing them out on the forecheck. So that kind of negated the Ducks' offense at that point. But let's start from the beginning here. Let's go from the first period. Ducks were buzzing early, man. I mean, Grubauer had to be huge there. He made a nice save on Jakob Silfverberg's breakaway. Ducks come back out with another good shift. And then shortly later, Brandon Montour comes in, collects a rebound from Auberg. Auberg with a great zone entry there, kind of holds up, doesn't panic with the puck, puts it on net. Grubauer a little overplays, comes out to a little far on his side of the crease, I felt like, and Montour just up on the play is able to take the puck, wrap it around and in, and it's all of a sudden 1-0.
It's kind of something we haven't seen too much from Brandon Montour at times this year, where he actually pinches into the play to make an offensive opportunity like that, and we saw it all game from him today. I think that's a big step for him. He's being asked to do a lot with Cam Fowler and Hampus Lindholm out of the lineup, especially offensively. And a great play for him to recognize that Grubauer was kind of a little bit too far over to the left side and to just try and get that in front of the net. Gets a bit lucky, of course, that Grubauer actually does a great job to go across and get his pad on it and just kind of sneaks through underneath it. But Brandon Montour, I mean, what more can you say about him in this game? Just the effort that he was putting out offensively was great. It was, I think, probably his best game of the year.
He had a hell of a game, and he was paired with the youngster Josh Mahura. So that's a big task for him, right? He's got to carry around the youngster. Mahura didn't look too bad in this game at all either. I felt like, especially in the first period and parts of the second period, he was really good. So Ducks come back around here in the first period. I thought it was a dominant first period by Anaheim for the most part. I thought there was going to be a little more pushing and shoving and maybe even some fights here with what Nikita Zadorov was causing trouble around. First pissing off Nick Ritchie on the side of the net, first after the whistle play, and then pissing off. Ryan Getzlaf looks like a freaking Old West sheriff with that stash.
Oh, I know.
So he gets a little upset with Zadorov too, but amazingly, Randy Carlyle's Ducks don't take penalties with Zadorov there and pop him in the face or anything. But I thought there could have been more of that going on.
There could have been. The Avalanche have some feisty players, like you said. They've got Zadorov. Soderberg's known to kind of get in those areas and be that type of guy as well. So they're definitely a team. There's a bit of history between these guys. Landeskog, again, he's a guy who loves to get involved in that. He plays on the edge. He sometimes crosses it. We've seen him have suspensions before, have some borderline hits. So I kind of expected that, but the games that we've expected that from, we haven't really seen it. The Kings game, we expected that. Expected it to be feisty. Even the Flames game, we expected something out of that one, but not a ton. In this one, the Ducks, every time they seem to play the Avalanche, there's something that goes on. But that was really it. That play where Zadorov and Getzlaf were kind of wrestling a bit, that was pretty much it. There wasn't a lot of physicality and not a lot of guys boiling over at all.
No, and it's kind of missing out of the Ducks game, I feel like, for what they've always been known for. So maybe there's a change in what's going on. Maybe it's just full of youngsters, and that's not their style. But that's neither here nor there in this first period. Miller's forced to make a couple of solid saves before we get out of the first period. But the Ducks would come out of it with a 1-0 lead. Shots 11-9 in favor of the Avalanche. I even wrote in the notes here, I was surprised. Honestly, a solid all-around period. Avs didn't have a lot of dangerous chances. They had a couple. So I know the scoring chances over the course of the game were brutal in favor of the Avalanche here. But I mean, when it comes to what was perceived as like really dangerous shots on net, I didn't feel Miller had to make a ton in the first.
Not really, no. I think it was a pretty good period from the Ducks. Probably their best period of the game, and in the way they controlled play, and they seemed to generate a lot of offensive opportunities. I think they got the puck out really well. A play by Josh Mahura that we tweeted out a gif of, just his patience with the puck, where he had two Avalanche players closing in on him. He waits, holds against the boards, turns around pretty quickly, and gets the puck out easily to Rickard Rakell. So what I've noticed the last 3 games for the Ducks is they're able to get the puck out a lot easier than we saw in the beginning of the season. And their zone entries are relatively cleaner. They're still not perfect. They're obviously still not top half of the league, but they're better than what they were doing in the beginning half. The goals aren't really coming yet, but I think that's a way you kind of start generating offense, is you clean up some of those parts of your game, getting the puck out of your own zone, getting clean zone entries, getting set up. I think they're starting to figure that out.
That's good, and they need it. They need to do that, right?
Yeah.
Going into the second period, the Avs get all the pressure in the beginning of the second period. It felt like Ducks get on the power play. Not really much going on in there either. It's kind of been a sloppy power play for most of the year. They've had some flashes where they've scored goals and looked okay, but just another boring power play there for the Ducks. I didn't really feel like they created any sort of pressure. But then the Avs would get on, or no, excuse me, the Ducks would end up finding a way to get on the board. And what I thought was going to be a lackluster power play, but I mean, to get before that, I gotta mention, I almost forgot.
You're missing Andrew Gettle's goal.
Scores a goal. I know, my mouse moved. I was like, wait, didn't the Avs tie it up? Yeah, Andrew Gettle with a goal. I felt like there could have been a penalty here in the second period. Cross-checks Welinski. I mean, say what you want if you think Welinski fell down on the play a little easy. He did take a cross-check in the back, and Andrew Gettle's not a tiny guy. It puts Welinski face first on the ice, and he ends up getting the feed, and it's 1-1.
Yeah, I definitely thought there should have been a penalty on this one. Really, Welinski isn't doing too much to initiate any contact with Sven Andrighetto, and he just gives him a nice cross check right in the back, and you know, maybe he goes down a little bit easy, but still, that is a direct play by Andrighetto that leads to a goal. He's wide open only because he cross checks Welinski down to the ice, and you know, I don't know how they missed that. They obviously give the makeup call after that, but it's a little bit late, right? Like, yeah, the Ducks do score on that power play after that, but that's a penalty you have to call, and the Ducks would, at that point, still be up 1-0.
And, you know, say what you want about the Ducks broadcast, too. A lot of people call them a bunch of homers, right? They're like,
yeah,
you know, the refs didn't want to call a penalty when Getzlaf gets tripped later on here. They don't make the call, but it's like you got to make the best of your chances in this game, and eventually it kind of all rolls back together, and you know, you decide your own fate most of the time. Like you said, Zadorov ends up getting a penalty. He completely grabs Sherwood through the neutral zone. He takes a seat for 2 minutes, and the Ducks get on the board with the power play. As I was just ripping it, actually looking too far ahead. Getzlaf wires it. I don't think Grubauer even had a chance at seeing this, because he was moving to his right. Puck goes to his left and goes almost top corner there. Completely blind on the play, I felt Grubauer was. But Getzlaf shoots the puck and he scores, man. We've been saying it for a long time.
Yeah, you had, I think Henrik and Auberg were both screening Grubauer, and you watch it, and Grubauer guesses the wrong side of the ice. And it's a seeing eye shot there. After that, it goes right to the top corner. But it's a great shot by Getzlaf. Honestly, you know, he recognizes that there's a screen. He kind of pulls it in, maybe fakes that he's going to shoot it to the other side. And this is the perfect play shot up to the top right corner. So this is why Getzlaf needs to shoot the puck more. I mean, he's a smart enough guy. He knows, you know, his hockey IQ obviously is off the charts, and that's almost like a pass for him. You look at it, it's like he plays that like it's a saucer pass, where you know, he pulls it in and just kind of floats it into the top corner.
Yeah, no, and not a chance, like we said. And so the Ducks would score the power play goal there, and then not too much later, Ducks get on the board with their third goal of the night. Andre Kasha with his first of the year on a drive up the ice by Brandon Montour. Montour comes in. What do you mean? You shake your head at me like this.
What? I don't know. I have no idea.
Getzlaf scores, makes it 2-1. Kasha comes in and makes it 3-1.
I'm reading your notes, and like they blended in together. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? Okay, yeah.
He shakes his head at me through that live broadcast. That's hilarious. No, I messed up before, man, but I'm on point this time. Kasha with the beautiful deflection, driving to the front of the net. Montour with the hard pass, shot pass, I guess you could say. Kasha gets his stick on it, goes up and over the shoulder of Grubauer, and now it's 3-1.
Yeah, it was a great play to get it out. Getzlaf ends up catching the pass off from one of the Avalanche players. And again, it's Brandon Montour getting into the rush, making a play, throws it on net, and Ondrej Kase, it's a great effort for him to tip the puck on net. And finally, he breaks through. I mean, this guy's putting up 4 or 5 shots per game since coming back. Had a ton of chances over the last few games. It was a matter of time before he put one into the back of the net. Again, he was probably one of the Ducks' best players in this game, and it's really nice to see him break through. Not on, I guess, a traditional goal that you would expect, because, again, if you're thinking of Ondrej Kase, when he puts puck in the back of the net, you're thinking of either a breakaway or a really good placed wrist shot or some kind of move where he's creating offense. But he can get it done anyway, and it's again his speed getting into the rush and helping out Brandon Montour there that gets the Ducks the 3rd goal.
I mean, speaking of speed, I think after this goal is where you see the fall off. After this goal by the Ducks, this is where the Avs take over. That line by McKinnon comes out and just has an extended stay. It's, I mean, not to sound cheesy, but it's like they could just do whatever they wanted. They could spend the day, the night, make lunch, make dinner, and the Ducks offensive zone for real. I know Henrique loses his stick on a play, and I mean, it seemed like the Ducks would come close to getting it up, but the Avs are just buzzing around. So dominant is Nathan McKinnon, man. That guy's unreal. Miller having to make all kinds of saves, a huge one on Rantanen in front of the net on a deflection. Then the Ducks come back a little. I guess they get somewhat of a dominant shift there from the gets-off line. But, I mean, honestly, man, Eddie, it was a Miller show from here on out for the Ducks.
Yeah, nothing in comparison to the type of looks that the Avalanche were getting. I mean, the Ducks had their chances here or there throughout the game, a couple good looks, usually off of defensive miscues from the Avalanche. But McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog just woke up and took over this game. And I was surprised it took that long for them, honestly, because of how good they've been all year. They were kind of asleep, and I think maybe they're taken a little bit off guard. I don't think they expected the Ducks to come out and play the way they did, similar to how the Ducks played the Leafs 2 nights ago, where you looked in that game and they kind of came out a lot faster and a lot better than we expected. But then really after that, it was McKinnon and Rantanen who just took over, and they're so good. It's ridiculous, and it's this new type of thinking that coaches have nowadays where you're loading up that top line, and in some cases it works out. It works out in Colorado. It works out in Boston. In other cases, it doesn't. I mean, it's sort of working out with the Ducks, right? When you've got Getzlaf, Rakell, and Ondrej Kase all lined up on the top line, you could argue that those are the 3 best forwards, right? So some cases it works out, some cases it doesn't. But for Colorado, it's amazing just how good they all are together.
No, for sure, and you're going to see a little bit of that here as we get along here in the second period. Landeskog goes to the box for interference. Ducks, this is where I was reading at the wrong place, by the way. Ducks just can't make any work of the power play. It was messy. At best, they got set up, but I felt like they just couldn't get anything going there on the power play. And then Monty goes to the box now. This is where his perfect game started slipping away, right? Yeah. Goes to the box. He gets a 2-minute interference call. He takes a free hand off his stick and grabs an Avs player in front of the net. I believe it might have been Rantanen, actually. Avs go to work on the power play, and that's not a good thing right now because Nathan McKinnon just wants this game back. And it ends up being just a point shot. It gets deflected in front of Miller, never makes it all the way through. I believe it goes off Manson's skate. And so Miller's set and then has to drop, sees the puck move, and at that point it's too late because you have Nathan McKinnon on the side of that who just buried. He one-times it, essentially a perfect deflection into the back of the net. Now we got a 3-2 game.
You got to look at the first 2 games for the Avs. There's not much the Ducks could do, right? I mean, the first one, it's a play that probably should have been a penalty, so Welinski's out of position and Andrighetto is open. On this one, it hits either Landeskog or Manson's skate, and it goes right to Nathan McKinnon, who's wide open. Otherwise, that's not a goal because McKinnon is in a good spot, obviously, for a rebound, but there's no telling that if it hits Ryan Miller's pads or if it gets through to the net, that it's even going to come out to him. It's a tough break because you can't really blame Ryan Miller. You can't even really blame Josh Manson. They were doing pretty well covering everybody on the ice as you can against a great power play like that. But, it's a lucky bounce that falls to a player who's red hot. And it's a tough one. I mean, the Ducks obviously luckily were still up 3-2, but I think that's kind of a momentum shift for them there because there's nothing you can do on that play. But that really, I think, sparked Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen and got them into the game.
Yeah, and the Ducks probably had their best chance after that power play goal. Essentially, I mean, I want to say, honestly, it's probably the rest of the game. Their best chance came here to end the second period. Ondrej Kase on a breakaway on a great stretch pass from Ryan Getzlaf. The puck rolls just a little far on him, but he's able to corral it. Grubauer makes the stretch save. That guy did the splits and was post to post. Didn't realize he had his blocker over the puck, and nobody was able to find the puck in time. But Kase had a chance to pot his second of the game and the season here, but Grubauer makes the save.
That's what I mean. I mean, Ondrej Kase, the last 4 games, he's been all over the place. And obviously we know he's putting a ton of shots on net. But just, again, using his speed, getting the breakaway, it's a great move. I mean, again, you can't really fault Ondrej Kase for that. He does everything. He does everything and maybe except elevate the puck. And that's difficult to do when you're in tight like that. But Grubauer able to make the splits, and we saw that a lot in Washington last year. And I guess this is the reason that the Avalanche brought him into the fold, is he's able to make saves like these at big moments. If the Ducks score that's not too long after the second goal for the Avalanche. That's a big momentum shift for the Ducks, and they would go into the third period with a 2-goal lead, which is huge. So, I mean, I love the effort from Ondrej Kase, but that's a great save. Probably Grubauer's best of the night. Easily
his best. He wasn't tested much after this. I hate to ruin the rest of the story for those of you who didn't watch the game, but that was essentially the Ducks' best chance here. Going into the third period now, Ducks are up 3-2. Avs come out with just flying with pressure, and then another power play for Anaheim. They need to fix the power play too. I don't want to be negative Nancy or whatever you want to call it, but there's a lot of things to talk about when it comes to what the Ducks need to fix. I know we all been talking about getting rid of Carlisle, maybe a head coaching change here, but if they would have made do on a power play or two, at least one, this changes the course of the game. They can't figure out how to make the power play work. I think part of the reason why Raquel's been ineffective with his scoring is probably because his power play numbers are down, right?
Yeah.
He's clearly not effective on the power play right now either. So the Avs easily kill that off. The Ducks seem to have some sort of weird pressure in the third period, but it just wasn't generating offense. It was that whole let's play the perimeter game where they just skate along the boards and then eventually just becomes a turnover. And before we get to the goal, how did you feel about how the Ducks came out in the third? It didn't seem desperate to me. I mean, they were up 3-2. And they kind of just closed it down offensively.
This is typical effort from the Ducks in the third period when they're going in with a lead. They just always sit back. And I get that. That's a strategy for a lot of teams, but when you're missing Cam Fowler, you're missing Hampus Lindholm, you're missing some key players defensively. That's not something you necessarily want to do, because most of the time you're going to have, or at least half the time, you're going to have Pettersson, Welinski, Larson, or Josh Mahura out there. And they're all rookies, and eventually there's going to be a mistake that's made, or you're going to have one of them matched up against Mikko Rantanen or Nathan MacKinnon, and they're going to make a mistake. And it's a tough strategy to try and employ, especially against one of the best lines in the league, one of the best power plays in the league, and just sitting back and allowing them to do whatever they want. I mean, that's exactly what the Avalanche want, is for you to sit back and let Nathan MacKinnon come into the zone with the puck and get set up. And that ultimately is what leads to the third goal for the Avalanche, and the Ducks just came out flat.
Yeah, let's talk about that third goal. Rantanen from behind the net feeds MacKinnon, who was just standing alone in the slot. Nobody there.
Yeah.
I mean, if I want to get mad at somebody here, I'm looking at Ryan Kessler, as much as I like him. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Nathan MacKinnon, because he's a great player. And we've been saying it since we started this podcast tonight. But you can't let that guy be open in the slot like that. When someone's going behind the net on their forehand, by the way, when a guy gets chased out from behind the net on their forehand, he's looking to pass. He's looking for that slot pass. And why isn't anyone on MacKinnon? Just take a split second for MacKinnon to bury it right there, and all of a sudden it's 3-3.
It's a tough play for Jakob Larsson, because it's not a pretty play for him. And again, I know it's Mikko Rantanen. There's a huge size difference there. Rantanen's 6'4". Right. He's a lot bigger guy than Jakob Larsson is, but he just gets bullied behind the net. I mean, Larsson just bounces off the back of Rantanen, who just easily shields him off. So again, part of the blame goes there, but how do you leave Nathan MacKinnon wide open? I mean, that's probably Ryan Kessler's guy, and you see him just kind of lost in the center of the ice, not really paying attention to who's around him. Again, a little bit of puck watching on his part.
How do you not know where he is on the ice?
I mean, you have to.
That's the best player, period, on the ice at that point.
And that's Ryan Kessler's job. So that's why I think a lot of the blame here goes on him, because his job is to cover those slot chances, especially when you're setting up against the opposing team's best line. He's doing that on a nightly basis. Didn't have a great game against John Tavares in Toronto. Was one of the you're looking at shot attempts. His line was the worst line. Which
Tavares do whatever he wanted on Friday.
It's to be expected to some extent, right? Because when you're going against top players like that, likely you're going to be on the opposite end of shot attempts. And you look at Silfverberg, Kessler, Cogliano. That's not a line that's going to generate a lot of offense. So that's expected. But these are the types of plays that you kind of make up for that for, where you're covering your man. You're not leaving Nathan MacKinnon open in the slot for a free one-timer on Ryan Miller. So that's where they have to make up for it. And unfortunately, the last few games, they haven't been doing that. They've been having some defensive miscues, which have led to goals. And it's tough. I understand it's a tough job for Ryan Kessler to have to do that, especially when he's probably still not at 100%, or he's not the Ryan Kessler that we're used to. But come on, I mean, if you're not doing that, somebody's got to get tasked with going against the opposing team's top players if Ryan Kessler and company are going to have these mistakes.
Let's talk about this. Much of the rest of this third period was all Avs.
Yeah,
I mean, there's really not much to talk about on the Ducks side of things. I mean, other than Ryan Miller played outstanding tonight, I feel like he is the reason why the Ducks even made it to overtime. But we have to talk about the situation here. So Ryan Kessler is assigned to play against essentially the best players on the other team every single night.
Yeah.
You look around the league, there's always a center that is designated for that. Not everyone gets the opportunity to have an Austin Matthews and a John Tavares or Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. So I understand that. But what the Ducks seem to not understand is that Ryan Kessler, or maybe they have understood it, but they don't have a choice but to play him, right? He's locked up long term, he's getting paid big dollars, and they know he's coming off injury. But he's like a third-line center at this point.
It doesn't mean you have to play him against the best players in another team.
Right, but I would go ahead and say it, man. I think Ryan Getzlaf's a better defensive center than Ryan Kessler. Getzlaf is really underrated in the defensive zone. I was showing my kid tonight, we were watching. I'm like, see how low Getzlaf goes to block the slot, to block passes? He's down. I mean, that guy plays a full 200-foot game. Not saying Kessler doesn't, but Ryan Getzlaf is much more effective at it at this point. So you kind of don't really know what to do if you're the Ducks manager, right? You have to either put your best offensive player on the ice, which is Ryan Getzlaf, to try to create plays and drive play, or you put him out against MacKinnon and let MacKinnon, drag him around the ice too, right? And Getzlaf's going to have to expend all kinds of energy doing that. It's a hard decision for Anaheim, but the Ryan Kessler of old is gone. I hate to say it because I really like Ryan Kessler. I don't want to bash him like that, but he just doesn't have that step anymore. I haven't been impressed with his game to start the year.
The problem is that's his role. That's always been his role. He's never really been an offensive guy other than when he was playing on the wing with the Sedins in Vancouver, and a couple of times where at center when he was a lot younger that he was still putting up points, and it was a different type of game that was played back then where it kind of suited his style of play. Now he's been through a couple injuries. Obviously, he's not going to be the same guy. But the problem is that's what you're paying him for, is to go out there and do that. And if he's no longer, if he's not going to be able to do that anymore, it might be more beneficial to put Ryan Getzlaf out there. It might be more beneficial to put Adam Henrique even as a defensive center against the opposing team's best line. The problem is what's Ryan Kessler going to do? Because that's what he's supposed to do. So you're looking at kind of a cost-benefit analysis for that, thinking, if we use Adam Henrique in that role and use him as a defensive center, we're losing offense from that line and probably not gaining it from a different matchup with Ryan Kessler, no matter what, because, Kessler and Cogliano, not the best guys offensively. It's probably not going to really matter too much if they're playing against Nathan MacKinnon or if they're playing against the opposing team's second best line. They're not going to generate too many chances anyway. Silfverberg, again, he's just kind of on that line. He's the only guy that can get any offense going, but it's tough when you're really focused on defense. So that's what you're kind of weighing up the option is do I take Henrique away from maybe a favorable matchup, use him as a defensive center, and then lose that secondary scoring or that secondary scoring option when maybe Henrique gets matched up against an opposing team's third line, which isn't as good. That's what I think they're weighing, but it's a tough decision right now because Ryan Kessler isn't getting it done, and that's not fully his fault. He's been through a tremendous recovery with his injury, and it's a tough one to come back from. But 2 games. I
mean, look, everybody meets the end of the road for a career, right?
Yeah.
Not saying this is Kessler's end of the road, but everyone ages. Everyone gets worse as they get older. Maybe he has to adjust his game, right? to stay in the league and find a different pathway to success. I don't know what the answer is for Ryan Kesler. I just know he's not nearly as effective as he used to be.
Well, Alex asked in the chat on YouTube, he asked, does Kesler look 100% to you? Not to me.
No, I don't. He's just not playing that same role. He doesn't look effective.
What does 100% anymore of Ryan Kesler look like? That's the problem. We're so used to comparing him to Kesler before the injury. You know, if that's 100%, I don't think he's ever going to get back to that. I think the 100% term is different for Ryan Kesler now. It's maybe this is 100% for him, right? It all depends on what your opinion of Ryan Kesler being at 100% is. So this might be 100% of what he can do now. I don't think he's going to do much more than what he's doing now. He's going to occasionally contribute to the goal every now and then, have a pretty good game. If he gets a pretty good matchup, maybe not against the best line in the National Hockey League, then his defensive numbers are going to be a little bit better. But, you know, I definitely think he looks not the greatest, looks better than last year. But to be honest, this might be 100% of what Ryan Kesler can give.
I mean, look, if you buy him out, I had a Connor in our chat here in Spreaker says Kesler buyout coming. It wouldn't be able to happen until summer. You can't buy out a guy mid-season, right?
Yeah.
So you're looking at what would happen is that he has 3 years left on his deal after this year at $6.675 million. The Ducks would have to pay him $2.425 for the next 6 years. So that's how the buyout would work. That's the cap hit. So I mean, they get to save a good chunk of money, but they're just going to be paying beyond the cap or beyond his contract about, you know, $2.225 for 3 years after his contract would end.
I don't think it's a smart move because usually you buy out a guy if you're looking to still be competitive for those 3 years, or you know, if you're looking to be competitive for those years that he's there, so you can take that off and get that extra $4 million over the next 2 years, right? That's usually what you're doing. So Kesler has 3 years left after this, or is it 2 years left after this year?
He's got 3.
3 after this year? Okay. So if you were going to buy him out, you're kind of expecting to be competitive for those next 3 years and using that cap space in a way that will try and make you competitive. I think the Ducks are almost at the end of their window, so they might as well just ride it out with the end of his contract and then have the full over $6 million available after his contract's up. I think that's a better option when you look at the direction this team's going in. If you wait the 3 years, a lot of the guys that are still in this team, like Raquel, the younger guys, Kasha, all the rookies coming up, they're still going to be in either their early to late 20s and still going to be a big part of this team and able to start a new run, hopefully. But if you buy him out, then you kind of eat into any kind of cap you would have. You have that extra $2.4 million that's going to be playing a factor when Ryan Kesler is not there and when you're trying to establish that other run. And that could be a big deal, especially if you're trying to re-sign some new guys or looking at grabbing somebody in free agency or looking to make a trade. That would come up, I think, more of an issue than Ryan Kesler's contract will be in the next 3 years.
100%. We got a lot to talk about with this Ducks roster. I feel like we could continue this conversation. Let's wrap up the game. Real quick, though, shout out to Lonnie Roy for subscribing to us on YouTube. Appreciate that. I saw that just pop up here in my window, so I thought I'd give a shout out. Looking at the rest of this game, Ducks go to overtime, give up the early 2-on-1 versus Miller. Miller with the guessing glove save, as the broadcast put it, against Nathan McKinnon. Getzlaf gets a nice wrist shot there on Grubauer going back to the way, but Grubauer just like stood up and just blockered it aside like it was nothing. And then Mahura almost gets called for penalty for knocking the net off the boards. That was close, and I thought it was going to be a penalty for sure. And the backside referee's like, no, they hit shoulders, and that's why they're not going to call it. Didn't seem to matter because the Avs were flying. Montour is able to get a chance on Grubauer, but he makes a save. I wrote this in the notes. We've been talking about playing fast all year. The Ducks need more damn speed. Like, cutting through that neutral zone, it was just so slow. They didn't have anyone. This is where they really miss a Cam Fowler on the back end when Montour's on the ice. Sorry. I mean, I know that people either love or hate Cam for what he does or doesn't do, but he's a brilliant skater and a great puck-moving defenseman and can create chances. Yeah. And I feel like it was really a standout to me in overtime. They missed a guy like Cam. And then McKinnon ends up drawing the call. Of course, why wouldn't he draw the call on Auberg? Auberg forced to sit with 14 seconds to go. Ducks clear the damn zone after the ensuing faceoff. And then I've heard so many people text me. People were hitting me up saying, How could they let the power play goal go in? Rantanen on the power play, just not a chance for Miller. Set up, of course, by McKinnon with 1.3 seconds left. One-timer from the high slot. That's all she wrote. Ducks drop to the Avs.
What are you supposed to do on that play? That is just a great set play by McKinnon and Rantanen, and it's all set up by Nathan McKinnon. He carries the puck into the zone. He fools 2 Ducks players, cuts to the slot. Everybody's looking at him. He draws 2 players here, which is important because it leaves Mikko Rantanen open. He draws Manson and I believe Adam Henrique. He draws both of them in, which leaves Mikko Rantanen open for an easy shot. I mean, that's all Nathan McKinnon, and that's why he's one of the best players in this league, because he has the ability to do that. He has the ability to make defenders and opposing forwards close in on him and create those 2-on-1 situations, and then he has the ability to make the pass out to the open guy. And I want to try and blame the Ducks for this, but that's the thing when you're going up against elite players like that. He'd probably do that to any combination you put him at, because you have to. I mean, as a player, you recognize how good this guy is, and you don't really want to take him on one-on-one, and you kind of get put in that situation where you kind of have to do a double team and 2-on-1 him, and unfortunately it leaves another great player like Rantanen open, and it's a perfect shot from him too. I mean, he only has one place to really put that, and that's in the top left corner, almost off the post, and he places it perfectly.
I mean, you're talking about the points leaders in the NHL.
Yeah.
Mikko Rantanen leads the NHL in points with 32. It's not like this is some fourth-line guy getting a chance on an overtime power play for some random reason.
Yeah,
right?
If that's Andrighetto that Henrique and Manson are closing in on in the double team, then maybe you could be upset about it, but it's Nathan McKinnon. I mean, you kind of have to do that on the play.
Right. I mean, what are you going to do? It's hard to fault anybody there. I mean, I understand a couple of buddies were like, why don't they just take another penalty there and just, line the clock down? Someone just go take an interference call. That just doesn't run through a player's mind. I feel like you're out there to kill the penalty. Sure, in hindsight, I guess you could say that, but like we said, that's all she wrote for tonight. Ducks drop 4-3 in overtime. Let's get to the post game part of the show where we talk about we spent a lot of time there on the Ducks roster and how it's constructed, and I took a look at Cap Friendly. We're talking about Ryan Kessler, but we got to talk about some questions here in chat. I like to keep us up to speed when people start asking them. But Josh Nash in Spreaker chat says, if Raquel keeps failing to score goals, is anything expected to actually happen? Will Carlisle actually do anything? He just seems snake bit and needs something to shake him up after or to get him flowing again. What do you think about that?
For who? Ryan Kessler?
No, for Rickard Rakell.
Oh, for Rickard Rakell. I don't really know, and I think, again, you look at the fact that nobody's scoring on this team, and then, again, the power play, like you mentioned before, I think that's a good point to think of, is that, not that the Ducks' power play was good last year, but it's just anemic all year so far. The Ducks haven't been able to get anything going on it, so he takes a big hit there in points, and the way the system is set up is it's not really an offense-first system, and we've seen that. The Ducks are near dead last in the league in goals scoring. They're second last in goals per game going into this night with 2.05 goals per game.
Only ahead of the Kings.
Yeah.
By the way. And they played 2 more games than the Kings.
Yeah. So it could be very well bottom. This game helps a bit. They scored 3. So that is better than what they were doing. I mean, 2.05, so 3 kind of bumps them up a bit. They're probably still 30th. But as for Rickard Rakell, I don't know. I don't want to say he's necessarily just snake bit. I think it's a product of how this team plays. The power play hasn't been good. All that going into it, I think everybody was kind of destined for a down year because of the way the Ducks play. When you play this way, where you're not scoring a lot of goals, everybody on the team's going to suffer. And of course, I don't think Rickard Rakell's playing at the level he was last year. But a lot of that just goes into the system that's set up here. So I don't fully blame him for it, but everybody goes on a down streak, everybody gets on a hot streak. If he can put a couple games together and get some confidence going again, then that could be huge for him. But I think the Ducks have taken a step in the right direction by putting Rakell with Kasha and Getzlaf, because again, I still think despite not scoring tonight, Rickard Rakell and Andre Kasha were the best players for the Ducks. Rickard Rakell was probably slightly behind Kasha because Kasha obviously did get the goal. But I think he had another good game, and eventually, if these guys keep going the way they're going, the points are going to come for him.
Yeah, they have to eventually, right? I mean, something's got to give at some point. The Ducks just looking at their offense between last year and this year, there's clear differences. But I guess the one bright side if you want to call it a bright side, Ducks fans, is that the Pacific Division is so bad that there is a chance, if you're hoping for a playoff run or a playoff game for the Ducks, there's a huge possibility. When you're talking about goal scoring in the Pacific Division, the bottom 4 teams are all from the Pacific Division in this order. Kings dead last, Ducks second to dead last, Coyotes third to dead last, and Vegas fourth to dead last. So they got plenty of company in the Pacific. I don't know what it is, especially that Vegas team, why they're so bad compared to last year offensively.
Yeah.
But the Ducks do have hope to make the playoffs. I guess it's a bright spot.
Sort of, but you look at the fact that they've played more games than pretty much everybody below them. The Ducks, like you said, 21 points in 22 games. Arizona's got 19 and 19, so all they have to do is win one of those games, and they're tied with the Ducks and still have a game in hand. Edmonton losing tonight, still have 2 games in hand on the Ducks, only 2 points behind them. Vegas beat Edmonton tonight, is 2 points behind Anaheim with 1 game in hand. So basically, by the time all these teams catch up, the Ducks could go from 4th to 7th in a matter of 2 or 3 days. It all depends on how these games go. So that's how crazy this division is. I mean, the Ducks sitting in 4th, they're still only 4 points out of 1st, and they're only 2 points out of being in 7th. So it's a little bit ridiculous how this division's been. Nobody's really been able to establish any sort of run. I think the San Jose Sharks are finally starting to get things going, and things are going well consistently for them. Erik Karlsson has started to put the puck in the back of the net. He scored his first goal the other day. Vancouver's fallen a bit down to earth, and I think it's about time. The 2 teams I said were going to run away with this division are starting to run away with this division. It's San Jose and Calgary, and I think that's they're going to be, I think, leagues ahead of everybody else. And then it's just going to be a muddled mess for 3rd and 4th. So the Ducks definitely have a chance, because I can't see Vancouver, I can't see Arizona, I can't see Edmonton, Vegas running away and really taking a hold of 3rd at this point. I don't see the difference really in you're looking at skill or anything that's going to make one of these teams break away. I don't really see it. I mean, what's Vancouver have over the Ducks? You know, when you're comparing the 2 teams, I would argue the Ducks are probably a better team. Arizona, similar aspects when you look at the team. Arizona's a little bit younger, but the Ducks have a little bit more star power when you take into consideration Ryan Getzlaf and Rickard Rakell. Edmonton, maybe just because of the Connor McDavid factor, could run away with 3rd place. That's the only team I could look at and say they have something over the Ducks that could pull them into that 3rd place spot. So as bad as it's been, and as bad as the Ducks have been playing, this division is so messed up and wide open. There's still a chance they could limp into the playoffs, maybe only even 5 games above 500.
Yeah, but is that a good or bad thing, right? It's better just to miss the playoffs and up your draft pick at this point.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm not saying tank the season, but I don't want them to crawl into 8th. You know what I mean?
Anything can happen,
and then
though,
just get crushed. Yeah, I know anything can. And I get we're a 4th of the way through the season.
Yeah.
So
no, I just mean in the playoffs. So it's one of those things that everybody says just get in, and then anything can happen. And
true.
I think it's a little bit more likely with the Ducks, that type of scenarios. Get in, anything can happen, because if you have John Gibson, you can win games easily. He will win you games, and I think in the playoffs, there are players who take their game to another level. Ryan Getzlaf is one of those guys. Corey Perry is one of those guys. Usually he's one of those guys. He'll be back if the Ducks are going to make a playoff run, hopefully. I think this is a team that if you get in, I'm not saying they're going to win the Stanley Cup. I'm not saying they're Stanley Cup favorites. But I think of the other 4 teams we mentioned, I think out of everyone, if you just get in, the Ducks have a better shot of going farther than any of them do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially like you said with the muddled mess, right?
Yeah, and just the fact that out of all of them, you have the best goaltender, and all it takes to make a longer run than you're supposed to is a goaltender getting hot. So
yeah, it just changes the course of the game, essentially, right? Or a series. A big save can change the course of a lot in the playoffs. You're right. Yeah. I know I'm a bit negative when I talking about this team, just because it's hard to navigate the positives throughout this the season so far. But there's a couple of questions here I want to ask. A really interesting one here from Tom on Twitter. He says, has the NHL ever considered doing what the NFL and NBA now do, where they acknowledge the officials blew a call that directly led to a score? The no call on the Welinski cross-check as an example, it would go a long way towards being more transparent. Interesting question. How do you feel about that?
I would like it, but the NHL does not want to slow down this game. That's the last thing they want to do. Putting in coach's challenge was hard enough, I think, for them, because it creates another stoppage in play. But I think they put it in, of course, because it helps get things right. There's a balance between getting things right and slowing down.
I think he's
play.
talking about after the game, like the NHL or the NHL council said they blew the call, like it was a blown call.
Oh, well,
like we should have had that. That was a cross check. It should never have been.
Oh,
it should never have been a
if
goal.
If that's
on
the
play.
case, who cares after the game? It doesn't change anything. It's not.
We'll just be more transparent on what they should call and shouldn't call. I get what he's saying.
If I thought he meant like during the game they recognize they miss a call and they can overturn a goal, that would be something I would be for. But I don't think the NHL would do it because again it slows down play and they don't really want that. And they've got the coach's challenge to try and get things right, to try and get offsides right, to try and get goalie interference right. The last thing they want to do is try and undermine their officials by saying, oh, this guy didn't get the right call, so now we're going to overturn this goal. It doesn't speak to something the NHL normally does. They don't really want to admit they're wrong, and they don't really.
They
want
never
to.
have.
No.
Yeah, they're whenever they're wrong about something, they never want to admit it. I like the idea though because, I mean, it puts more onus on the referees and linesmen to be better, right? I mean, they're not going to change what they do in game. Like you said, they already talked about, having the goalie interference rule, the offside rule, those things where they can do the coach's challenge on those plays. But that's about as far as the NHL is probably willing to go in order to pull back a goal, right? I mean, it's just not going to happen. But I like the idea. Like, hey, we messed up. It's good to know that that's what our officials should have caught that. And again, it puts more of the onus on the officials there to make the correct call. Kent in Twitter says, this is more of a joke. I always like when questions start off with that. When a professional athlete gets sick, who do they call? GM, BM, RC, or a trainer? Do they still go to the game? Really just curious, breaking the serious questions up.
I don't get that.
I'm sure he texts Bob. Hey man,
Yeah,
I'm sick. Or maybe they show, because they all show up for game day unless he's like
calling in sick from work.
Right. I'm sure if you're like deathly ill, you just phone it in. You probably call Bob. But if you're not, then you show up to the morning meeting. I'm sure they have morning meetings before games, the morning skate, right? And then you see a trainer. Yeah, man, you're sick. Yeah, you shouldn't be playing tonight. You stay
I think
hydrated.
they go see a trainer probably no matter what. I think,
right, that's their doctor.
They would, or whoever they asked, they'd say, yeah, go see one of the trainers, and we'll make sure that you get treated for whatever it is, because they have to diagnose it, right? They have to find out what it is. So, Gibson can say he has the flu, but I would rather go to a team doctor or a trainer.
He's just playing hooky tonight.
Yeah, or that, or it could be something more serious, or it could be something less serious, right? So you always want to go to a team doctor or a trainer to find out what that is. I'm sure that's probably the first place they would go, I would think.
Right. Another question on Twitter. I think the last one we've got here. Mahura looks solid, and this is why I didn't bring it up earlier, because I knew we had a question about it. Mahura looks solid so far. Any chance he stays with the big club after the injuries? That's a tough question.
He's probably
That's
up here for
one.
the next 2 games, at least.
I didn't think we were going to see him at all this year, and I got called out for that by our good buddy Jimmy.
Yeah.
Pat said it wasn't going to happen, and it did. And they've already got Walensky in the lineup, and Larson in the lineup, and now you're talking about another kid. They already have Pedersen in the lineup.
Jake Dotchin's up as well.
Docton's up as well, you said. So Mahura looked really good, but he also played with the Ducks' best defender on the night. Let's see how it goes. They got another superstar coming into town on Wednesday with Elias Pettersson will be here, and then they have Connor McDavid on Friday. So McKinnon, Pettersson, and McDavid. Let's see how they fare after that. That's what I'm curious to see how they play after these next couple of games. I think you're right though. He's gonna be in the lineup the next 2.
Yeah,
or he'll sit for Docton one night.
Yeah, but then they would have to move Larson down to the bottom pairing, and they seem to be comfortable with Pedersen, Walensky. That seems to be what they're going with, or maybe even Pedersen and Docton. That could be the likely thing they're going to go, because I think they like having Jakob Larson either being able to play on the right or the left. So what it looks like right now is it's going to be Larson and Benson like it was today, Mahura and Montour, and then Pedersen and Walensky. I would like to see Docton get in at least for one game. Why else would you call him up, right? You might as well keep him down there. I think maybe he gets in for the next game over Walensky. That's what I would like to see, because I want to see what he can bring to this team. I want to see if he's a better option than Shen or Schuster or Walensky. I think he is. I think he would be a better option long-term than any of those guys. So he's the easiest one to kind of switch in and switch out. So I think they want to see Josh Mahura and what he can do. This was a good NHL debut for him, not great, but he's got 2 more games to prove himself. I think no matter what, though, he probably gets sent back down because Hampus Lindholm's coming back into the lineup, right? So who are you going to send down after that? Pedersen and Walensky have been up here for pretty much most of the season. Jakob Larsson's been up here for a while, and he hasn't looked great, but the easy option is to send down Josh Mahura. Don't want to have to move him to the right side if you don't have to. So I think likely he gets sent down when Lindholm comes back.
Let's move our questions over to Facebook. A buddy of mine, Dave, wrote, how much do you think they won it tonight? Enough? And that was when the Ducks were winning. And then he answered his own question, said no. Answer, they did not want it enough. So unfortunately, it didn't work out. Another friend of mine, Dan, on Facebook says, why should Anaheim bother activating anyone on the IR if they play like this with a bunch of kids and the backup goalie?
That was probably written at the second intermission.
Interesting, right? Yeah. I see what people are saying would keep the kids up.
Yeah.
But you just can't. I mean, what are you going to do? Like you said, Hampus Lindholm is better than any other defenseman on this team when you're talking about the guys that have been pulled up from the AHL. Sorry, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
what are you going to
say
too? Like, are you going to bench guys? You can't. You can't bench these guys.
It's a nice thought because I know a lot of Ducks fans want that youth movement, the growth to come back, right? And just say F it and let's just play a bunch of kids and see what we get out of the season. Bob Murray's not in that mindset yet.
Well, no team can do that. If you look at any GM, any coach, if you take what the Ducks roster is right now, you can't do it. You can't because you've got guys locked into contracts and you've got good players who you would rather be playing. Let's just look at the lines tonight. You're not moving anybody off that top line. You're not sending them anywhere, benching anybody. You're not going to bench anybody on Henrique's line with Ritchie and Aberg. Normally I would say on a normal circumstance, if Aberg wasn't playing the way he was playing, he's a guy you could say maybe you would send down, but he's got 6 goals in his last 11 games. So you have to keep him up at this point. Cogliano, Kessler, Silfverberg, you can't do anything with those guys. You can't bench them. You can't send them down. And then the fourth line is really the only thing you could work with, which is where we've seen Kylie Kosela when he's up, which we've seen Sam Carrick down there. So that's where all the guys go. And at that point, why send a guy through waivers if you can send a young kid down to the minors who's waiver exempt? And that's all the guys we've seen sent down. Troy Terry, Sam Steele, Isac Lundestrom, Josh Mahura, whenever he gets sent back down. They're all waiver exempt. It's an easy move for the general manager to make. Don't have to worry about losing a guy. The last thing you want to do, no matter how bad the players or how bad you think the players, the last thing you want to do is lose them for nothing, right? The Ducks don't want to lose Brian Gibbons for nothing. So
no.
They're not going to send him down to the minors. Not saying that they would trade him to get something, but that's depth right there. And if you're throwing that away and letting another team pick that up, it's kind of pointless.
Another question here on Facebook says, tonight and really all year, this is from Nick Webb on Facebook, Sherwood has been a big energizer on the fourth line, getting to 50-50 pucks, keeping plays alive, etc. Do you guys think he has the potential to develop his skill and become a top 6 forward? I would say top 6 is pushing it. I would say middle 6 is more likely where he's going to slot in, unless he's just the beneficiary of playing on the top line because he's fast and he's able to put the puck in the net with Ryan Getzlaf. I mean, sure.
He's going to be like a Kournianos type player, I think, where the offense isn't quite there. But people are saying they're comparing him a bit to Andre Kasha and just the energy style of game. He plays fast, he plays hard, he forechecks. I think he's got that sense, but he reminds me of maybe a little bit younger Andrew Cogliano, where the goal scoring isn't there, and obviously the finishing isn't there, and we've seen that on occasion from breakaways from Sherwood this year already, where maybe the finish isn't quite there. So I more see him maybe as a long-term replacement to Andrew Cogliano at best, where he's a third-line energy guy. He maybe becomes more of a defensive forward than anything. It uses his speed to his advantage. I think high upside for him is a top-9 third-line forward. I think he's almost already there. I think when you look at who the Ducks have in their lineup, I think he's a pretty decent third-line forward. Maybe not in the modern-day NHL where you're kind of expecting goal scoring from your third line. You really want 3 lines you can put the puck in the back of the net. Almost, I guess, 4 lines, right, that can put the puck in the back of the net. So nothing wrong, though, having him as a fourth-line forward. I mean, that's kind of the type of fourth-line player you want nowadays, is a quick, fast guy who has enough offensive instincts to put the puck in the back of the net on occasion.
You definitely need it. I feel like there's no question. And then it was funny you said he's like Cogliano. Joseph Holmes answered that question for him and said, yeah, I think he's our next Cogliano. It makes a lot of sense. But Cog still had streaks in his career where he put up 20 goals or close to 20 goals. And being a finisher at this level is extremely difficult. And that's something that people don't understand. You make it to the show, but to be a guy who can put the puck in the back of the net consistently and, get a bunch of goals and even just one season doesn't mean success for the following season. So we'll see where he plays out.
Yeah, for a guy who's undrafted, that's a huge steal already to begin with. Even if he becomes an energy fourth line guy, I mean that's a great pickup for the Ducks. You look at the guys recently who they've picked up from college. You do Kalle Kossila. I mean, that's a great pickup for them. He's great in San Diego, and he's been pretty decent. He's reliable. Again, a fourth-line guy. You can kind of move it in out of the lineup. For a guy that nobody drafted, that you signed out of the NCAA, that's a pretty good pickup. And I think Kiefer Sherwood has been one of their best pickups in that sense when you're looking at an undrafted forward. Nobody expected him to make the team this year. Nobody expected him to make any kind of impact. He's factored on the score sheet a couple times. And just the style of play that he brings is exactly what the Ducks are kind of looking to transition into. So I think that alone, and you can't expect too much of this guy when, the Ducks definitely didn't when they picked him up. So I think it's been a good start for him nonetheless.
And it's much better than my favorite Captain Canada, Chris Kelly from last year.
Yeah. Or Jason Chimera.
Or Jason Chimera. So you bring in youth and speed, and you got the energy guys on the line. I don't care what line they play on. And if you asked anybody who played in the NHL, like, hey, you could play in the NHL, but your whole career is going to be 12 years of being a bottom six forward. I don't think anyone's going to look at that and go, yeah, I don't want it. Right? You adapt it and you do whatever you have to do to stay in the game. So nothing's wrong if he ends up being that guy. No. But there's a lot to to wait for it and see what happens. So, but I wouldn't mind it. Right? He's a good player. So I think that's all we have for questions. I'm going to check our Instagram here. It was kind of a light night. I think people are a little bummed how the game turned out.
We only had one on Instagram. It was from Canadian Girl. She asked, what do you guys think of Getzlaf's mustache?
I love it. I asked my wife if she would care if I did it. She's like, no, I love your beard. Don't get rid of the mustache. Don't get rid of you can't do the mustache. I'm like, just for November, give me the cool mustache that goes down like that.
It's the perfect creepy mustache, and it just works so well on him because he's bald. So when he takes the helmet off, it just
he's a 70s cop if he had aviators on, right?
Adam Henrique has easily the best one though. His is perfect.
Oh yeah, he's got it going. He's got
the best one going. We did get a question though in the YouTube chat from Ned Martin. When we were talking about Andrew Cogliano, he says, why does Numbnuts, and referring to Randy Carlyle, never use Andrew Cogliano in overtime? I think that's because we've seen from him, especially on breakaways and just general play, he doesn't have the offensive instincts to really put the puck in the back of the net. So, yeah, his speed would be valuable in 3-on-3, but without him out there anyway, you're going to get those opportunities. So that extra speed for a guy who can't finish, that's why he's not out there.
I mean, the Ducks had curious players out to begin overtime anyway today. I felt like they didn't utilize their top guys enough in overtime, but maybe that's just me. I think that's it for us, man. Unless we got anything else you want to chat about. We haven't heard any news on Cam Fowler's injury. That's going to be coming the next few days, from my understanding. Hampus Lindholm. I don't know where people saw it, but in our Discord chat for Patreon, I think Jimmy said that it was a lingering issue from the game against the Kings. This is where Lindholm got hurt, and it kind of just never went away. I don't think I'll play detective on that to see where it came from, but Jimmy's not one to lie about where he heard something, so I'm assuming that's what's happening. It doesn't seem serious if he was skating through it, but I mean, hey, what are you going to do? The Ducks are going to be forced to play the kids here for a bit. But do you got anything else for us, Eddy, or should we wrap this show?
No, I think that's it. Other than, I didn't really hear anything on Hampus Lindholm and where he got injured. I mean, hopefully he's back in the minimum amount of time, so 2 games from now, or 3 games from now, he has to miss the next 2. So hopefully he's back. They said upper body. Did they say day to day?
Lower body.
Or sorry, lower body. They didn't say day to day or anything, but
he's on the IR, so whatever that is.
Well, they've been using the IR a lot this year, so it doesn't seem to mean too much. It just means obviously that he's out for the next few games. So hopefully he's okay. I don't think it'll be too bad.
And no update on the Eves front. The Ducks are just wounded for the past several years, as I've said on the show a number of times. I mean, they've got guys on long-term IR, Corey Perry, Corbinian Holzer. Maxime Comtois is actually on a conditioning stint in San Diego, who's playing well. He scored in his first game down there. Injured reserve, they got Carter Rowney, Patrick Ease, Hampus Lindholm, Cam Fowler. It's never going to end.
And Corey Perry, too, if he is.
So. Yeah, Corey Perry's on long-term injury.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes, guys. But thanks for tuning in. Everyone who joined the chat, we appreciate that, of course, whether it was on YouTube or Spreaker. If you haven't already, it doesn't matter if you want to go on YouTube and watch or not watch. You can't watch them all. It does help if you just have a Gmail account to help us build up in the rankings for those who do want to watch. Helps us show up in more searches. If you could spend 2 seconds, go to YouTube, look us up under Forever Mighty, and then click subscribe, and then click the bell, which will notify you whenever we go live. We don't go live every day, every hour. It's not going to bother you, but just a notification for you if you want to pop into our YouTube stream. And like I said, helps us out in the rankings. So can you please do that? And also, if you want to help us out, go to iTunes. It's always great to leave a quick review about our show. That also does the same thing for us and helps out the rankings there. Patreon, if you are a Patreon subscriber, we appreciate all that support too. We got a couple of shows we're going to be recording this week and releasing. Definitely going to do a top 10 this week, and then we're going to have a Q&A show or our Pucks and Beer show. We'll talk NHL and drink some beer. I'll be very curious to see what beer Eddy will be drinking when we do that, because he's no longer in America. He's going to have to go get his own beer.
We're going to have to go down to the beer store and find it.
The store,
I have been to the beer store twice since moving up to Sudbury, so that'll be an interesting. And I don't think they sell anything that I had when I was down there, so now I'm gonna have to. Get some requests from some people in the chat.
You're just gonna have to go to. You're just gonna have to go get some. Was it not? Molson Canadian. That's what you're gonna have to do, or Labatt Blue, right? Those are the only two beers that Americans
can't do
that
it.
are Canadian.
It's got that. It's too much of a beer taste. You know what I mean? So I can't have that.
Can't be playing with that. No. Do make yourself a hard alcohol drink then. Gordon Bombay, shout out. Thanks for calling Patreon, Lamatron. We know you support us.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyways, guys, we will see you Wednesday night against the Vancouver Canucks. That's where to find us. Have a great one.
Thanks for ruining my show, by the way. That's it. I'm sorry you guys had to sit through that, but this is an obligation, contract obligation, they told me. So my kneecaps are sweating and I really got to go to the bathroom. So I'm going to have to let you guys go. Thank you. Bye.